Deltarune Chapter 5 wasn't really that heavy lore-wise if you think about it. I mean, Chapter 4 gave us the real prophecy, told us that we can break it with hope, introduced the shelter code search, added a lot of detail about the shelter and the night, showed us how titans are made and more. Chapter 5 felt like it belonged next to Chapter 1 and 2 in a sense. We didn't even have one mention of Undyne, it didn't reveal who the knight is, Azrael didn't even come for the festival, Frant only made one appearance, we didn't even fully learn what happened to Asgore. Many people expected something different, but hey, it's Deltarune. There still are a lot of new stuff that we learned thanks to Chapter 5, even if the major ones are left for the last 2 chapters. I fully believe Toby knows what he's doing here. That's why today I'll try to put all lore from Chapter 5 together in this video. If you appreciate that and like Deltarune content in general, then make sure to subscribe for more and like the video. I also enabled memberships, so if you're with me for a while and want to get a shout out at the end of the videos, or watch my videos earlier than everyone, then you can become a member. Anyways, let's go. So getting first things first, I'll try to go in a chronological order in which you learn about this stuff in game. And obviously I'll only talk about the things that are important to the whole story, not just for Chapter 5. I'll also skip the gags, we're only covering the juicy lore. Alright, let's start with the festival segment. Oh no, wait, actually the first few seconds of the game give us something interesting already. So KRIS, at the end of Chapter 4, put us in the birdcage again and went somewhere for the whole night. We see them crawl back into their house as the intro to the chapter. They're visibly hurt and don't have much energy. Even their color changed. From what I can tell, it's Toby telling us that KRIS physically cannot stand living without the soul because they'll start dying. That's why they rip us out only when necessary. Well, was it necessary in this situation? We don't know what KRIS did at night, and it was also definitely the longest they went without us. They definitely couldn't enter a dark world, so they had to do something in hometown. I really wonder what it was. Maybe they just didn't want to listen to their mom and Sans partying. This chapter doesn't give us an idea. Later, when we are in control of KRIS again, we can look for Azrael's drawer. In there we have DESSRIEL confirmation, which is kinda crazy, but it makes sense. If we go downstairs we can talk with Toriel. She's quite sleepy after partying with Sans all night. We can tell her that we are locked out, and then she says that KRIS knows where she hides the keys. So KRIS lied to Susie to go to the church with her, which is really interesting. They must have knew the knight would make a fountain there and to bring Susie with them. They just acted as if they can't go home, so they go to church to ask Toriel for the keys. But Toriel wasn't there. Could it be that the church dark world was a second attempt of kidnapping Toriel? You know, Rudy, I mean the knight, failed at it in Chapter 3, and since they tried to take her first, it would make sense to do it another time. But Sans apparently saved her. Next up we go to Castletown, which has many funny gags and dialogue as always. The only really important thing is our conversation with Sham. They tell us that today we'll fight our last secret boss and get the last of the 5 shadow crystals. They explained that shadow crystals are the power of lost dreams. I thought it's gonna be determination. But lost dreams are also a great explanation. They form from shattered passion. Jevil hoped he'd rise to power, Spamton wanted to be famous and rich again, Gerson regretted not telling his son how proud he was of his writing, and Pink wished to have Asgore's Mew Mew doll as her body. We still don't know what the knight's shattered dream could be, but they also gave us a shadow crystal. Although if it's Rudy, it could be a shattered dream of a happy family being together. Alright, Susie's preparing for a date with Noelle in Castletown. That's the main reason for us to be there. And when we come back to the light world, her date starts. KRIS and us are third wheeling. And fourth wheeling, I guess. There are many interesting things happening here in regards to the previous conversations we had with hometown citizens. I honestly expected something bigger since it was foreshadowed since Chapter 2, but when it comes to some deeper stuff, the main things that were really interesting are Sans interactions and this fucking bird. You know how this bird is really similar to the Gaster follower face from Undertale? Yeah, they were at the lake in Chapter 4 and now they are serving octopus that tastes like onion? Did this guy literally murder Azrael too? And that's why they were absent from Chapter 4? And why are they mentioning G? That's from Undertale? Honestly, this guy is so crazy that I'm just gonna make a whole separate video about him. But man, I never expected actual murders in hometown, and especially not by this guy. But yeah, back to Sans. Remember how he saved Toriel from the knight? I think he might know more than it seems. When Susie and Noelle get on the Ferris wheel, he makes the ride only go halfway up. Noelle then mentions that she wished she could have seen the lake. Did Sans do that on purpose? The ride works fine when KRIS and Susie go go on it. And considering what happens when Kris and Noelle enter the lake in the weird route, I can only guess there's more to him in Deltarune as well. Next thing is obviously at his ice cream stand. First off, some people believe his ice cream looks like a Gaster Blaster, some say it's Toriel, I don't quite know. But the important thing is that he asks Susie to draw her friends on a punch card so he'll remember them. Now, do you remember what was found in his lab in Undertale? A poorly drawn picture of 3 people smiling with a text saying "Don't forget." Yeah, we finally learned how that picture got there. And simultaneously, we got confirmation that Sans had to hop dimensions to Undertale, but he desperately wanted to go back. And this simple interaction, such a normal thing, actually made him remember the trio from the festival. It's really deep, and I am glad it was just so simple, because that's how it should be. If you are ripped from your timeline into a completely different one, you wouldn't remember some insane stuff, but simple details, interactions and objects that were in your simple life. Later on, we get the romantic lake scene with Susie and Noelle after the town goes to see who the festival king and queen are. That's when we learn that Rudy fell down. And what could that mean? Either that he's dead or that he just fell down and is in a way worse condition. It's hard to tell right now, but I don't think he'd be killed off screen. Even if he isn't the knight and actually will just get killed off for the plot, I don't think this is how he'll go. I think Noelle will try to heal him, so he'll probably still be at the hospital just in a worse condition. But if he just fell down and it was a way for Carol to make Noelle go away from Susie so Kris could make a dark fountain, then it would also make sense. I mean, he also looks like he fell down in the weird route, but the whole town is celebrating the king and queen event. He also tells us that holidays are full of surprises and they don't need to be good ones. And since the knight appears really late in the dark world and bumped their head in it and had trouble standing up, even if they were really agile just 1 chapter earlier, then maybe that's more Rudy Knight evidence. Honestly, I don't know, but I will probably make another Knight video in the future to cover chapter 5 info as well. Alright, let's finally enter the dark world. It's immediately clear it's almost identical to the chapter 1 dark world. It was probably nostalgia related, as that's what the dark worlds are hardly about. It also fits with the theme of this chapter, which really is escapism again. You know, ASGORE'S safe space, Susie's new home. But what I gathered from it, it seems that Kris opened the first dark world. You know, the Forgotten Classroom one. Otherwise, why would they be so similar? And if that's the case, it means Kris and the Knight opened fountains one after the other. Bunker, the Knight. Forgotten Classroom, Kris. Library, the Knight, which was also confirmed in chapter 5. Kris's house, Kris. Church, the Knight. And finally the Flower King, Kris. We don't really know about the first Dark World and Castletown, but if I had to guess, the first Dark World was the Knight and Castletown was also Kris, considering the save file and it being called My Castletown. That means if the next chapter had a Dark World like Holiday Mansion for example, it will probably be the Knight's doing. I don't know how to feel about it, I wanted the Knight to have more open Dark Worlds than Kris, it just made more sense, but we'll see what Toby is cooking. Next up we meet Aqua, which is the first flower. She represents the patient's science soul from Undertale. And if this isn't a confirmation of Kris being originally a science soul, then I don't know what is. Aqua has the exact same hairstyle as Kris, she has the same skin color, and they both love knives. I mean, if it wasn't clear, then Toby even made a joke where Aqua's body color changes to red. You know, cyan to red? Yeah. And that's probably why the science soul is the only one that doesn't have a certain gimmick yet. Every soul does now after the flowery fight where we had an orange soul boss fight, so Patience is the only one that is still a mystery, probably because Toby saves it for when we finally get Kris's original soul back and we have a new vessel, for example. Later on we find the egg room, which is way less interesting than chapter 3 and 4 did it, but it's still interesting nonetheless. I think it was done that way as a reference to chapter 1 again. The dialogue is exactly the same as in that chapter and Kris's HP is as well. But when we ask for more, the man put a hand on your shoulder and showing you his empty palm, he put his finger on his mouth, smiled and shook his head. He waved goodbye for now and Kris felt melancholic, thinking they should not look for the man anymore, even though they never did in the first place. It is really interesting. It doesn't really solve anything for us. It's just a way to say goodbye to him. It's sad that this is the last egg room and we'll never get more of this man, probably. The only clue we get is the empty palm, which could be the empty hand of Gaster. The man also gestures a lot, so he could be the one who speaks in hands, but I never really knew if I agreed with the Forgotten Man being Gaster thing, since they seem to have a completely different role. The Forgotten Man is someone that Kris knew, who tried to help them. They hid the memories of him deep within themselves. Gaster seems like he doesn't want Kris meeting him, or at least us meeting him. Also, as a man above the whole world, I don't think he would just be someone from Kris's past. But yeah, the eggs are still unsolved and I really want to present you my theory about them soon. Make sure to sub for that if you're interested. I have a lot of theories and other fun videos about Deltarune in mind. Alright, later on we get to the castle once again like in chapter 1. And there's some interesting dialogue there as well. First off, Flowey and Ralsei and Susie have this conversation about having to close this dark world to prevent the roaring, but Flowey tells them that closing their castle town would have the exact same effect. Looking at how mad Ralsei and Susie are after hearing it, that could be what the final prophecy is, especially since Susie made it her home now, not realizing that it's all just a fantasy and she spends time with objects in a small space, eating imaginary food and sleeping on the ground. That discussion was really deep, probably the most deep moment of the chapter, and I really want to make a video discussing that idea. You know, we act like the heroes even though we have our own dark world that technically also makes the roaring more of a possibility. And the feelings of darkness in Flower King or any other dark world don't differ from those in Castle Town. But yeah, many people believe that's what the final prophecy will be, essentially making all of our friends be objects again, and waving goodbye to Ralsei forever. But looking at how surprised Susie is at Flowey's words, I can't be sure. Still, I had to include that since it was a very important moment. Next up, we learn that Ralsei has fire magic. This is the chapter in which Susie and Ralsei act even more on their own, so seeing him use it here was very interesting, especially since he knows about the menu and probably utilizes that to hide the magic spell from us. Fire shock probably kills enemies, that's why he doesn't allow KRIS to cast it. But what is interesting is that in Dragon Blazers 3 there is a mage character who can cast fire shock in the Ice Palace. There's also an ice shock using character on our team. Could that be a hint towards chapter 6? Noel will join us in Dark World next chapter. Ralsei revealed he has fire magic and he's more open to using it, and it could take place in the Holiday Mansion, which would fit the Ice Palace description. Okay, back to Ralsei in chapter 5. We actually kinda knew he could use it thanks to this act in the third sanctuary, but it's been definitely more of a focus this chapter. He even says that he's far stronger than it seems, but doesn't want to use fire magic as everything would break apart, and he's afraid of that. He probably thinks that if he were to use it, we could land on a similar route to the Weird Route. I really loved how chapter 5 developed Ralsei. It made him a much more interesting character with an actual backbone and new abilities. Alright, let's talk about the ASGORE stuff. Turns out there was the Dark World in the past, the one that started it all, where a tragedy happened. Ralsei didn't even know about its existence. That's probably the Dark World in which Des disappeared, but we don't know for sure. All we know is that ASGORE blamed himself for it, and he devoted his life to proving everyone that he is not crazy. That something like a Dark World actually can exist, and the one who opened it, the Knight probably, is the one responsible for Des's disappearance. He wanted everyone to know he's innocent and prevent it from happening again. We learned that ASGORE isn't in on the conspiracy, he's actively fighting against Carol, the Knight, and KRIS. Also, Toriel left him because he changed after the incident. He devoted his life to proving his innocence and figuring out what the Dark Worlds are. It's a really cool scene where he explains it. His family members are all in certain colors, the colors of the flowers that all have different traits. ASGORE is yellow. As a cop, he represented justice. KRIS is cyan, patience, we already established that. Azrael is green, like kindness, and like Ralsei. And Toriel is integrity, I believe. But then, after the incident, ASGORE turns red, determination. That's what finally doomed him. His determination to prove he is innocent, to get back what he lost by his own doing. We don't exactly know where that first Dark World was or what was the tragedy as well, but we have a pretty good idea of this disappearing suddenly and without a trace. Okay, time for the finale. We say goodbye to each of the flowers and go seal the fountain, but when we do, the Knight makes a fountain at exactly the same moment and grabs ASGORE. They hit their head and couldn't stand up, still keeping ASGORE in their balls. Flowey tries to kill him with his fake stats, but as expected it doesn't work. They clash and the Knight cuts Flowey down. That's when we learn that plants are neither darkners or lightners. Since they are alive but also serve as decorations, they are something in between. The fandom calls them PLANTNERS now. I really like that explanation. In the light world next to Flowey there are seeds, which people now think means Ralsei's seeds, since he was next to Flowey, but I didn't see any seeds in any other place that was a dark world, so I doubt that's the explanation given to us outright randomly. There's also a piece of paper that is a code to the bunker. KRIS tried to destroy it but failed. You know, that is interesting. ASGORE had the code but isn't aware of the conspiracy going on, and who the Knight is? It's really weird to me. But regardless, the code is actually 0915199X. 0915 could be a reference to Undertale, as that's the release date of the game. It revived the many theories that the bunker will be a recreation of Undertale, which would be pretty cool. I don't really have an opinion on this yet. I guess we'll see next year, or maybe in chapter 7. I guess that's it. I expected some more lore reveals when it comes to chapter 5, but there were less than in chapter 4 and probably even 3 to be honest. I understand that Toby wanted to make one last fun adventure, and the gameplay, the humor and the soundtrack were all amazing. It just felt like the previous chapters were building towards something, and chapter 5 kinda slowed it all down. We still don't know who Friend is, we didn't have any info about Gaster, we still haven't seen Des, Azrael nor the Vessel, we haven't learned who the Knight is, we aren't sure about the final prophecy, we still don't know what Roots, Tale of Hell and Ring of Heaven are, we still don't know what KRIS is up to. There are still so many mysteries that chapter 5 hasn't really pushed forward. That's kinda why I don't love that chapter as much as 2, 3 and 4, but I'm hoping Toby knows what he's doing and that build-up will pay off in the next 2 chapters, especially since we know that this is the last fan chapter. Chapters 6 and 7 will be serious and will probably explain all of the mysteries I've listed. As of now, we have a lot of theories to make, and we also learned some new interesting stuff from chapter 5 that I hoped you enjoyed me covering. If you did, then make sure to stick around for more videos about chapter 5 and Deltarune in general. Also like the video and comment your thoughts, as that helps the video as well. Thanks for watching, until the next one, and...
Look, I understand you're tired, but that is no reason.
I'm not just tired.
Did you just cut me off? Damn.